All right, so Dick, for the people who know IFS, they're super excited to dive deep. And for the people who are walking in, who might be like, what, huh? Help me understand. So yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
So I was saying earlier that we're all multiple personalities, and that's a good thing. Not that we have that diagnosis, but people with that diagnosis are no different than all of us, except their parts, called alters, got blown apart more.
Yeah.
But the fact that we all have these internal beings, really, is the natural state of the mind. I just stumbled into that discovery about 40 years ago. And that they're all valuable in their natural state. They all have qualities and resources to help us in our life.
Yeah.
But trauma, which is a big theme last day and a half, and attachment injuries, which is bad parenting, and all the slings and arrows we suffer, take them out of their naturally valuable states and force them into roles that can be damaging, but they think are really necessary, either to protect us or some of them we just lock away. And so it's very similar to, this is why it's called internal family systems, very similar to the external families that I was studying, because I have a PhD in family therapy, and how kids in the family would be forced out of their naturally valuable, into these roles that were protective of the family or protective of themselves, but it wasn't who they were. So that's the metaphor for parts. And some of them are very young, and the more sensitive parts of us, inner children. And before they get hurt, they bring us all kinds of awe at the world, and curiosity, and openness, and creativity, and playfulness. But again, they're the most sensitive parts of us, so they get hurt the most by the abandonments and the rejections and so on, and the abuse. And they are the ones that take on these extreme beliefs and emotions from those experiences that I call burdens. So now they were really happy inner children. Now they carry the burden of worthlessness or terror or emotional pain. And now we don't want anything to do with them because they can overwhelm us with those feelings. You know, you and V were talking about opening that door and how much scary it is. So we tend to take those parts and lock them away in inner basements or abysses and lock that door as best we can, thinking we're just moving on from the memories of the trauma or the emotions of the trauma, not realizing that in doing that we're isolating and moving on from our most precious qualities simply because they got hurt. So for these parts, it's insult to injury. The injury was the trauma, and the insult is we abandon them and try our best to stay away from them. And so we call those the exiles. And when you have a lot of exiles, you feel more vulnerable. You know, we just did a piece with a vulnerable part that Elizabeth did. You feel more delicate, and the world seems more dangerous because so many things could trigger, and then the door flings open, and these flames of raw emotion threaten to overwhelm you. So other parts are forced out of their naturally valuable states to become protectors. And some of them will protect you by managing your life so that nothing similar ever happens again. So some of them might try to keep people away, never let them get close enough to hurt you like that again, or they might try to make you look perfect so you never get rejected, or perform at this really high level, which I'm sure many people here have that one, I have that one, to counter the worthlessness. And some of them become these inner critics because they're yelling at you to just try and get you to do better, look better, or they're yelling at you to try and keep you small and not take any risks and just stay low. But they're all just trying their best to keep you safe, and they're all carrying these burdens, these extreme beliefs and emotions, and they're all frozen in time during the time of the trauma. And so most of psychotherapy misinterprets all that as symptoms and problems and doesn't realize that they're all good. They just need to be helped out of where they're frozen in time and helped to unburden, and they'll transform immediately into their naturally valuable states, which, this took 40 years to develop, but it's quite amazing. The other thing that I stumbled onto also when I was trying to get these parts to get along with each other, because I'm a family therapist, once I got hip to the fact they're valuable and they deserve to be listened to, like maybe I'm having you talk to your critic, Soren, and I'm trying to get you to listen to it rather than fight with it, and suddenly you're furious at the critic.
Yeah.
It reminded me of family sessions where I'm having two family members talk to each other, and a third one jumps in and is taking the conversation south. And in family therapy, we would ask that third member to step out and improve the boundary.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that with clients, because suddenly they're furious with the critic.
Yeah.
And I'd say, could you find the one that hates the critic, and could you just ask it to relax back a little bit, step out a little bit? And to my amazement, clients could do that. And when they did, it was like a different person showed up.
Wow.
Not only wasn't hating it, but also suddenly out of the blue had compassion for this part, this critic, or at least curious about it and confident relative to it.
Right.
And then when I would do that with other clients, it was like the same person would pop out with those same C-word qualities and 5 others. And that blew my mind, because I'd been trained, like many of you are therapists, in attachment theory. Attachment theory, basically, I love most aspects of it, but they got one big thing wrong, which is to have any of those qualities, you had to have gotten it from another person. So it's not inherent in us, and we didn't get it from a parent, you got to get it from a therapist, or from your spouse, or some other person. And I was finding it in clients that had not only not good enough parenting, but had been tortured on a daily basis.
Wow.
And when we just got certain parts to open space, the same self popped out that popped out in people who had decent childhoods.
Wow.
So I couldn't square that observation with traditional psychology. It wasn't until people steered me toward spirituality that I could see that virtually every spiritual tradition has a word for this, and almost no psychotherapies do.
Wow.
And so Buddha nature, or Atman, or so on and so on.
Consciousness, yeah.
And so when I would ask people, when I'd ask you, Soren, what part of you is that? You'd say some version, that's not a part like these others, that's me.
Yeah.
That's myself. So I came to call that the self with a capital S.
Yeah.
And that's really the big deal about IFS. Not only, like I said, many spiritual traditions know about it, but they don't know necessarily that you can access it so quickly simply by getting these parts to open space. So it's in there, can't be damaged, and knows how to heal, and is just beneath the surface of these parts, such that when they open space, pops out spontaneously.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful description.